Welcome to Xi'an. This is like the kind of like the ancient capital of China. The city itself is like a relic of Chinese civilization. It was the capital for at least some of the Zhou dynasty, the Qin dynasty, which is the first unified dynasty in China, the Han dynasty, and of course it had its heyday in the Tang dynasty. Most of the city actually comes from the Tang dynasty when it was at the end of the Silk Road. So it became kind of a sort of international trading center during the 6th and 7th century. So this is the northern city gate or southern city gate in Xi'an. So it's kind of interesting. You can kind of almost imagine what it was like back in the day when people were coming from afar and they would come into here. You probably have to hit some sort of checkpoint or something. This is the wall. This is the sort of city wall. It's one of the big attractions in Xi'an. And you can go up there and take a walk on it. So often China is like rebuilt over and over again, and like a lot of the stuff that we see today in China is usually just kind of like refurbished stuff, but then they have ways of preserving stuff. So here is the old gate. They projected some sort of thing on it that is showing the different dynasties that each layer of rock is actually from. So like the Sui and Tang, this middle part was like the Sui Tang Dynasty. This other part was like the end of the Tang Dynasty. This part was put on in the Song Dynasty. Up there you have the Qing and the Ming Dynasty. This is like the 5 kingdoms. I don't know when that was, and then there's Ming and Qing down there. So that's how it's been refurbished. And then up at the very top there, they have the modern refurbishment is at the very top. So that's the original wall, and it's kind of showing the different refurbishments over the different years and the different dynasties. Kind of interesting. So again, more of like the ancient wall. This one doesn't have like the different refurbishments on it. It's just got like the foundation. So the story behind this gate is that like basically during the 700s to 900s, which is the Sui and the Tang dynasty, that Chang'an, which is Xi'an, this was at the end of the Silk Road, which was a huge trade route that went all the way to Europe overland through Eurasia and through the Arab world. And so foreign traders and diplomats would come to Xi'an, and then they would stay at this gate, which was a hotel at the time, and then they would go and trade their stuff in the Muslim quarter. So I guess they would come here and trade their stuff off from across the continent, buy some Chinese silks and spices and take them back to Europe. All right. So the reason I think this is interesting is because it's kind of like a history of their foreign relations, and this is why they're talking about the Silk Road, right? So this is Tang Chao Tianguo, right? So this is sort of like they're depicting like the Tang Dynasty. So that's when the Tang Emperor sort of ruled over China. It's famous for poetry. It's famous for its sort of like artistic traditions, and it's famous for having like sort of Buddhism in China. And I guess what they're trying to make it famous for here, or at least what they're recording here, is its internationalism, right? Like the idea that it was the end of the Silk Road, that it's China's Silk Road, right? So that it was like sort of the center of this whole international community that necessarily actually transcends the later Western-centered international community that we sort of live in today. This is Egypt, obviously, because that's a Sphinx, and it says the Arabs conquering Egypt. So that's about like the Arabs conquering Egypt. Then this one is like the first Japanese mission to China during the Tang Dynasty. Muhammad, this is like Muhammad establishing I guess the Islamic Caliphate, or like they say like a country. Here looks like India, some sort of Indian dynasty, I guess whatever was around during the Han too. So like, I mean, if you were to look at Muhammad was around like 600, 700 BC. That was the same time as the Tang Dynasty. And this is, I guess, what was going on in India during the Tang Dynasty too. So the whole history, and actually we're gonna go see the Goose Pagoda here. So like the whole history of the Tang Dynasty here has to do with the Xi'An, which is the journey to the west, which is like a story in China. It's one of the four great stories. It's about this monkey king. He accompanies this Buddhist monk who goes to India to get the Buddhist scriptures and bring them back to China. And it was in the Goose Pagoda that the legend has it that those Buddhist scriptures were translated from Sanskrit into Chinese. So I think that's what they're sort of depicting here, is Xuan Tang translating the Buddhist scriptures into Chinese during the Tang Dynasty. So this is Xuan Tang. He's the Buddhist monk who went to India and he got the Buddhist scriptures and he brought them back here to this pagoda where he translated them. So here we are inside of the Goose Pagoda, and so it says it was built in 652 AD to preserve the Buddhist sutras, figurines and relics brought to China from India by Master Xuan Tang. So the legend is, and actually one of the greatest stories of that time is called the Xi'An. So it's like the journey to the west, and it talks about this monkey. It's called the Monkey King, and he basically he converts to Buddhism and he follows this monk Xuan Tang to India to pick up these Buddhist scriptures, and of course he protects them the whole way. So I'm sure there was not really a Monkey King, it's a legend, but there was actually a monk called Xuan Tang who did go to India apparently, and then came back with the Buddhist scriptures, and he translated them here. So this is like an important Buddhist site in China. Tang Chao, this is Sui Chao, Xi'An Dynasty. Oh, sorry. This is Qianqin, yeah, and Qianqin would be the first part of the Qin Dynasty. Houqin would be the last part of the Qin Dynasty, and this one is, what's that? Zhou Chao? 不是吗? Yeah, cool, thanks.